Number two, we need to have imparted something about property investing to our listeners.
each
And we
episode.
did that. And I think that mission is accomplished. Didn't wait for perfect equipment. Didn't wait for 3 cameras or especially black property owners, black property investors, and interview those just so that other black people can see how possible it is. We had lunch with a friend and she posted something on LinkedIn that had a picture. And someone commented, one person commented and said, this is not Instagram.
Okay.
Apparently, it set her back like 4 months.
And you keep dropping the gems even here.
When? Before we recorded?
Before we recorded. So everyone, I've been mentored like proper, hardcore before we even start.
I apologize, and I
Don't apologize
to the
for giving
cameraman.
value, for giving value. So Doc owns the biggest female-owned property podcast in South Africa. You host it. You host it with a friend.
I host it with my co-founder, business partner, and friend. Yes.
Tell us your story.
Oh.
How did you become Doc? By the way, when I got your number, you know the name that came along with it. I don't know if it's just Witness who called you that, or this is populates Mizo the Rainmaker.
Mizo the Rainmaker, Prop Doc Mom is all of my names and all of
So
my...
the Rainmaker does exist.
The Rainmaker does exist. Ke Motlalepule. My middle name is Motlalepule. And that's how Rainmaker. And I'll tell you, I'll tell you another time. But Rainmaker as well. In Rainmaker is my aspiration of being a rainmaker.
Because when I saw
making
Rainmaker,
a business that works, that's going to live generationally, and it's going to make it rain on generations to come. Yeah. So my name is divinely aspired. I'll tell you another time, but Prop Doc Mom is the social media tag that I go with, because I am property investor, property podcaster, Dr. Mom, all of those.
Property investor, podcaster, doctor. And for all of you who hate education, I'm talking to a real doctor. This is not a DJ Mang Mang that you come up with a song and you give yourself the title. There's mileage that and hard work. You are a medical.
I am.
You don't look like you enjoy that part of the intro.
I love the science. I love the science of my medical degree, and I've utilized it differently. I'm glad I eventually, after a very painful, long journey I just knew that working in a practice or working in a hospital ward just didn't feel right to me. And you just don't know who to ask, you don't know who to go to, because at the time when I qualified, I was 22, there was no one else who was doing anything else besides being a doctor. So everyone just thought and assumed. And including myself, I assumed a doctor is in a white jacket and a stethoscope around the neck, and that's all you can do. And I looked around and I went to different departments at the hospital and said, Prof, can I specialize? And I tried this and I tried that, didn't like it. And it's so hard to explain, and
So this is your early 20s?
20s, yeah. And
what did you not like immediately? Was it the money or just the work? You're not passionate about it?
I knew already while I was at medical school that I love this science. I love the explanation of the body and how it works and when it goes wrong and how to fix it. Loved that. I didn't enjoy the night calls, for instance. I'm like, is it necessary though? And I see people who are doctors like that, right? Love what they do, and it doesn't matter at what time of the day, because when you become a doctor, really, it shouldn't matter what time of the day because the body doesn't make an appointment to go wrong. And then when I graduated, while I was still a houseman, I remember we used to sit in the duty room with other doctors and we would talk about what we want to do. One of the other guys was going to go and take a gap year. He was going to go deep sea diving, something like that. And I did my house job here at Helen Joseph, and all I had was white kids. Privilege like that. I'm like, you can actually do that? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, what about work? And it's like, no, I'll come back and see what I want to do.
Okay.
And I was one of the only 2 black housemen at the time in 1994. So I knew that this being on call every 4th day, staying at the hospital for 38 hours at a time, I'm just like, I'm not doing this. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not doing this, right? But there was no example of what else.
This is something you wish you had known before that
much
time.
earlier, much
what your
earlier.
options were at the time.
Well, everybody was, I'm going to go to anesthesia and specialize. I'm going to go to pediatrics and specialize. Somebody went and did trauma medicine, and I was like, no way. Trauma medicine, casualty the whole time. Okay. No, thank you. But the guy who went and did it, you should have seen him, Tando. There are people who love and are passionate like that. He ended up with international SOS. He used to do medical evacuations from other countries, from war-stricken countries. Beautiful, isn't it? And
it's a powerful
It is a
story.
powerful thing. And I have a friend who's been in practice for 33, 34 years. Her practice is ran like a beautiful business. When I do a locum there, I walk away happy because she has set up the practice such that it serves what she wants, even the way you dress, even the way her receptionists and her assistants dress, how she has set it up. There's a pharmacy, there's a psychologist, there's a way that you treat a first-time arrival patient who has never been to that practice. There are times, and it's amazing. There's a coffee table outside where you welcome patients, and she has set it up as a business that runs like a machine. Love how she has set it up. But I'm not a GP at heart, By the time I'm done.
You did try that.
I did.
You did try your own practice.
I did.
I haven't forgotten. But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But where I want to start with you, especially since you've already started mentoring even me.
I didn't know I did that.
It is 2024. It is the beginning of the year.
Oh, yeah.
What normally happens now for many people is New Year's resolutions. And I know there are thousands of people that are saying, Mina, this year I'm going to start that podcast.
Yeah.
I will start that channel. I will start that business. I will lose weight. I will all of those things. Where are you on that when it comes to those resolutions, and what big things are we expecting from you? Because I want to give value to someone who is tired of the way things have been all along,
yeah.
And they wish they could change something and get going.
Okay, sorry to disappoint you. I don't do resolutions.
I'm not disappointed.
Myself. But that's me. That's me. That's me. And even when I decide that I'm a little overweight, the jeans are too tight, I will just somehow start on a Friday and decide that that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start exercising again 3 times a week or something like that.
Is there a reason why you don't?
I find resolutions are easily forgotten. They are we are all gung-ho in January. By March, something has interceded and done something. And the minute someone has a wobble with their resolution, it's like, we'll start next year. So how I do it for myself is I set up short-term things, that milestones that I want to get to. I decided that my manuscript that is so difficult to birth, it's been sitting in my computer for 4 years. I've decided on the 18th of January, I'm going to press send and send it to the publishers and the editors, right? So that meant over Christmas, I was working already. And this is a resolution that started when? Can you see it's over 4 years? And I can't punish myself. And that's the other thing with resolutions. You feel almost punished that you didn't achieve. You self-flagellate. You are hitting on yourself. So I just don't do that. I do have, though, a sort of a plan, a vision for this year, right? A vision for this year, how I want to feel, what company I want to welcome into my life, how I want to feel in my house. There are things that I want to change. So it's not a resolution. It is mostly, what are the things that are going to make my life easier this year?
Isn't it a matter of semantics, though? Because the way you're describing what you do sounds like a resolution to someone else. And you can't, or not you can't, but the way you are so structured and the way you set goals and achieve them, there has to be some good process that you're doing. Because you started a podcast and you grew the biggest women hosted podcast. That doesn't just come at random.
It doesn't come at random, but the one thing that I do, I've just told you that I grew up as a Miss Goody Two Shoes, Ntando. Maybe I must start there. So Miss Goody Two Shoes meant me now when I touch my maths book, you will see it's clean. I got the high marks, so I grew up a high pressure child and it caused a lot of anxiety. So along the way, I had to let go of that perfection because life will happen to you and life will teach you to let go of these things that are structured. And when you go into medical school, the science on its own has to be structured because a small mistake could kill someone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a unlearning of certain things and to know where to apply this whole structured and orderliness and to let go of some things. With our podcast, for instance, we thought we had many stories about, how it's difficult to get funding, how it's difficult to get into property, and all we could see was white, gray-haired men on property magazines. And snap. That's it.
What was it about that ticked you off, though?
What do you mean? Do you mean black people are not in property? They can't invest in property? And what is it about the banks that makes them not finance us in property? What makes it so difficult? So we made it our mission to say, let's find black property owners, black property investors, and interview those just so that other black people can see how possible it is and where to begin. So that was our mission of the podcast. And it was even these financial houses. Let's interview them. Let's see what makes it so difficult for you to see us as investors. And the language of invest, underline invest, is just not a language that we use. Your grandmother, your mom had back rooms. Your aunt somewhere has got back rooms and unama tenants. That is property investing, but we didn't call it that because in the Black nation, investing is for the others, not for us, right? So we were bringing it back, and we almost had a motto between the two of us that we are going to speak property investing in Siswati and Setswana because I'm Tswana and Vangile is Swati. And we are going to Swatilize it and Tswaranize it so that a black person can relate. And Mina, all my life, I
Did you do that though? Because I checked a couple of episodes, they were in English. I did not
They
come
are
across.
in English. They are in English for reach because we speak other 9 languages, right? So that everyone across the board understands it. But if you look at it all of our episodes. 95% are Black people, Black owners, Black developers, Black quantity surveyor, Black contractor, Black. It was deliberate, not in exclusion of, because you will find white males who were willing to teach us about property investing.
And they
had good things to teach. That's why they are in there. But, in the Black nation, investing, when you speak about shares, the first thing that people say is, how can I tell it? You have money for that.
And that the bank won't fund me, credit scores.
Yeah, that's why we started it.
If I were to ask you as someone interested to start and say, what does it take to start and build a podcast in 2024 with all the experience you've accrued?
I like it. I think the first thing is your mission. Mm-hmm. What are you trying to say? Yeah, there are lots of people on YouTube, isn't it, Ntando?
Yeah.
There are lots of people on TikTok, but what are they saying? And are they saying it to themselves? Are they giving to somebody? Or are they just doing for popularity? And it's fine, really. What is the mission? So I don't have a sense of other people. I mean, even on TikTok, you won't see me actively active on TikTok, but the people that I follow are in property investing. And the minute I found out that there are book reading people on TikTok, property investing on TikTok, how to organize your finances on TikTok, those are the people I follow. So I hardly ever get any jokes on my TikTok timeline because
of who you follow.
Because who I follow.
With intention.
So that's the first thing. The second thing, can I talk about you and how I loved it?
You can, please.
So as I walked in to come for recording, there is a whole setup, a camera here, and a camera there, and a camera there. And I was like, oh, wow, you fancy. And I've got a fancy mic in my hand. That is fancy. Bangile and I, when we started the podcast, she was sitting in Sri Lanka. She was sitting in Thailand. She was still in Chiang Mai. And she is a nomad. She lives in countries for
digital nomads or a different kind?
She's a digital nomad. All her businesses run online. And she will go and live in a country for 3 months, 6 months. She did an immersion program in Mexico, stayed in Mexico for almost 4 months. That's it, right? And I wanted to do something different. And I know something about property investing. And I was sharing with her my personal journey and what I'm discovering as I am property investing. So how did we start? She's got a Zoom channel that is paid for. We can speak for more than 1 hour without cutting. She would put on her earbuds, and I would be sitting in Johannesburg on my laptop, Zoom. We find guests, we invite our guests, we set up a time, click, record.
So all those guests that we're listening to are on Zoom?
They were all on Zoom. And we recorded on Zoom. And we would stop to stop the sessions, right? There are different sessions in the podcast, just so that it's easier for our editor. So we do have an audio editor who would edit out certain sounds and make it sound better. And then we had someone who does the podcast script, but at the end of each recording, we would sit afterwards to say, what do we want the title to be? Okay. And we would give her a few notes, and then she would expand from there. 2 assistants, 2 of us, Zoom, done.
To the biggest female-owned podcast in, you say Africa, actually.
Yeah. So I don't know of a female-hosted property investing podcast that is not sponsored and hooked to anybody. An independent female-hosted, Black female-hosted podcast. I think we were the only one at the time of starting.
You are slamming all the excuses, eh?
Injar. Because sometimes our guest would be ready and I would still be driving from work or something. And I would connect on Zoom on my mobile.
You've
That's
interviewed a guest on the go.
Vangile would come back to South Africa, go to her village in Mpumalanga, and Wi-Fi is an issue and connection is an issue, and she would drive out of her mom's house to go and sit at some parking lot and we would record a podcast. The point being, the service we wanted to give to our listeners is the podcast must land on every Tuesday morning by 10 o'clock. Number two, we need to have imparted something about property investing to our listeners.
each
And we
episode.
did that. And I think that mission is accomplished. Didn't wait for perfect equipment. Didn't wait for 3 cameras or a special microphone. I only got a light and a microphone just because my niece showed me that there is
thing.
equipment that you can buy and it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. And I saw her record me on a podcast. Like, oh, okay, I could have that. And but she's a digital marketer, so she's, oh my God, gung-ho about that. Yeah.
I am speechless.
So I really.
The big take is don't
Start.
wait for all these.
Yeah.
There's
Start
always
for
a
the-
way to start. There's always somewhere you can start. If you're saying you started with the phone.
Indeed.
All right. So when you started, did you have the 2 editors already or you picked them up along the way? Because the quality is good. So I'm as impressed as the story is behind the scenes. It still sounds unbelievable when I listen to the episodes.
It's episode 1. It's episode 1. Episode 1 cracked up. And listen to how the editor comes, the sound editor comes. It's because he is Vangile's brother-in-law. And he says, oh, you're starting a podcast. Oh, okay. So I assume then somebody has edited the sound. Let me listen to it. And he was like, oh, no, guys, you can't. No, you can't. You can't put this out. Listen, just pay me some retainer, stupid retainer and whatever. And I think he's been very gracious. I don't even think we pay him enough. So he went and edited the first episode and said, listen to yourselves again. Can you see what I mean? And Vangile, please stop moving about. I know you use your hands a lot. So you are crackling onto the speaker. So I want you to
how?
No, I don't know whether she was hitting on the, on the earphone or whatever. And she was like, and look into the camera in case one day you want to cut it up and put it on video on YouTube. So we never even had a digital strategy. Our strategy was, what do we want our listeners to know? And Vangile is a financial, I don't know what to call her. I'll call her financial coach for lack of a better word today.
Let's say financial coach, but I heard her tagline. She says she heals a financial trauma, generational financial trauma.
She does. And that's why I'm hesitant to call her a financial coach, because the minute someone says financial coach, we are already thinking spreadsheets. We are already thinking budget, and that's not what she approaches. The reason why we don't invest in that, or Black people don't invest, including myself, is investing. Even the language of investing gives us a lump in our throat, because we thought investing is for rich people. Investing is actually when you do not have money, because of each 100 rand that you earn, there's a 10 rand that goes to your emergency savings and 10 rand that can go to investing. And then the other 80 can cover whatever expenses and debt that you have. And we've never been taught that language. Or even when we are taught that language, we are already withdrawing from it, because we think it is for white people, it is for the other, it is for the trust fund baby, it's somebody. And that's exactly what her work is about. It's got nothing, very little to do with budget. By the time you get to budget, you're like, I see.
That that is so close to my heart. Eh? That
Is
language
it?
is
Is it?
here
Is
with me. It
it?
resonates proper.
Yeah.
You don't know my book, now?
I don't know your book.
Oh, here.
I need to, oh, this I can read in 2 days, right?
Yes.
Oh, this is so amazing. But that's the thing. Financial freedom is, imagine if I had been taught financial freedom when Antando. I tell the story very openly that I think I've been a millionaire more than 2 times in my life. But because you do not know what you don't know, you don't know that actually I could extend this and become financially free
Yeah, financially free.
and in less than the time. And professionals especially, we are easily trapped by debt because the banks will keep giving you and piling up on the debt. So it keeps us in our jobs or keeps us in the profession, even when we want to do something else. We are trapped by what because I don't know if I would have done the podcast because, I'm a doctor already, right? Why do you want to do other things? Why do I want to do other things?
It almost feels like you should just stay in your lane.
Exactly. It really traps us.
Someone put it nicely, actually, tying to what you were saying
Yeah.
about being a professional.
Yeah.
Says poor people buy escapes. So a lot of the money goes into consumption. Middle class people buy wealth reducing liabilities.
That's it. That's it. Have
And
you
then
seen?
the rich buy assets,
They buy assets.
income producing
That's
assets.
it. And the minute you become middle class, there is some disease about, oh, you're still driving that car. Oh, now you feel obliged. You must, you must, right? Oh, you're still staying at that house. Now you feeling obliged to stay at a particular address, drive a particular
And then you
car.
go get that wealth reducing liability, and you
that's
don't
it.
realize
That's it.
increasing financial pressure on yourself.
Yeah. I don't know which books you read, but there's a book that both offended and inspired me. The
Okay.
Millionaire Next Door. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
that's a cool one.
That's a cool
That's
one,
a
right?
proper.
But I don't know how you read it. When
Okay.
I read it, there were doctors all over in that book. Yeah, he speaks
Oh,
of, yeah.
yeah. Well, I wasn't a doctor,
You
so I
were-
didn't read it with your lens.
You've got to go back, even if you listen to the snippets on audio, to see that he speaks about your electrician, the plumber, and the builders. Those people are the wealthiest people because the house that they buy once is the house that they will live in forever for the next 30 years.
They don't
And
have
that means,
ego that says
no, they
keep
don't.
upgrading and keep keeping up.
Exactly, because Mina, I have to move to midstream and I have to move to Dainfen and Aspen, right? So your plumbers and your electricians, the artisans are your riches. Doctors, what do they build? Now he speaks about male doctors. Male doctor has got a problem of doctor's wife. Doctor's
Okay.
wife's car gets changed every 4 years. That's number one. And then the doctor children go to the private schools, right? Now he keeps having to make money to take them to the
sustain
private,
that.
to sustain that. Doctor's child graduates from high school but doesn't necessarily go and work. Most my dad is a doctor. Now you are keeping up the lifestyle of the doctor's child and the doctor's wife. That's why cardiologists work until they are 77 and they are shaking and still operating. Very, very heartbreaking story of the professional, because that's what happens to us. And the car manufacturers and whatever.
It's a worry. It's
It
a worry.
is.
It's a concern for me, actually,
It
especially
is.
when you look at the kids, because you wonder, what are we teaching them?
We teach them that this is your lifestyle now, but they don't know how to create that lifestyle for themselves. And then we feel obliged to sustain that lifestyle for them, so we keep doing it, right? So we're not imparting anything new to them. So we don't necessarily build generational wealth. We build a life of middle class. And when we die with our profession. Now they have to figure out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've accrued a lot of wisdom along the
Yeah.
way. When you look at your journey
Yeah.
with the podcast, what are the big takeaways since you started? What have you learned along the way?
My gosh.
I know this could be the whole episode. Your favorites?
Oh my goodness. So we started the podcast and we thought we were bringing a service to people.
Okay.
The humbling thing about starting the podcast, Ntando, is that we not only have learned along the way what triggered property investing in most people. I learned that your township grandmother's house is actually your first port of wealth creation. But us as Black people, what do we do with family houses? We fight over them.
Aggressively so.
Aggressively, and we let them debilitate and die on us. They end up being inhabited by some drunk uncle. And that's one of the things. So the first thing is township, grandmother's house, wealth creator, if we do it right. Second thing, township, again, leave those high class, high end apartments. Necessarily, I'm not saying don't buy them. Buy them if you know what you're doing with them. But they are an expensive way of starting a property investing journey. It is not necessarily where you begin, because when you buy these units in a complex, you're paying the homeowners association, there's a levy, then the city of Eguruleni, city of Joburg, city of wherever that you are paying, and you are already buying at an expensive price, but you only get one tenant. And if that tenant moves out for the next 3 months, you are looking for a new tenant, you are not earning. Township property.
Okay. It doesn't have that.
Township property. Come on. Kunama back room. There's Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z in the 3 bedrooms. If Mr. X moves out, you still have income from Y and Z. And remember, our levies are lower in the township, right?
Very.
Very much lower. And you can still live in that house. So you do not have a bond that you're paying. You're making income from 3 bedrooms. Mr. X has moved out, Oiwani. Y and Z are still paying for the expenses that you need to pay for electricity and city of Joburg. So I learned a lot. But the third thing that I learned, which
still on that.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at it as an investment opportunity, I will have fears of getting into a space that I don't know how to manage. One of them being collecting rent from people who might not decide to pay.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And any other fears, you probably will know a bit more in terms of why others are skeptical to invest.
I like what you're asking. We overthink everything. It's just like the podcast. If you remember well, okay, let me take my example. Where I grew up in Orlando East. No, I grew up in Diepkloof and then Orlando East. And my mom's house has got 2 bedrooms. And for as long as I can remember, from when I was 11, there used to be a tenant.
Okay.
And I don't know if Mama did it deliberately, but she always had a female working tenant. That's all we lived with. And all our tenants the first one stayed for 5 years, next one stayed for 9, the next one stayed for 6 years. All of them are long term.
Okay.
And rent has always been paid. So let's go back to, why do we start with fear? The other lady, an accountant that we had on the podcast, her mom lives in Limpopo, Kosishiro.
Okay.
And Kosishiro, the back rooms are called Malaine. Her mom has got multiple rooms.
Okay.
And her mom, I can imagine, in her sishweshwe dress, she just goes and collects her rent.
No problem.
No problem. Every teacher that lived in those back rooms of hers knew that they don't have a roof. I don't know how she does it, but I'm just cautioning with, why do we start with this fear? It's that thing that Vangile teaches. Why do you start with that fear? Is that all you know? You only know tenants who don't pay. I know tenants that have paid my mother, because my sister and I went to university, and the 700 that came from those rooms, Mama would divide it into 3. I was the one who would go to Standard Bank and deposit for my sister, and I would pass by Black Chain or Checkers and buy our groceries while Mama is at work, and then I would buy my bus coupon. I only know tenants that collect. So if you only know failure, why do we start with that?
I think that's a deep takeaway for 2024, actually. Why do you start with fear?
But we start there. You know why? Because we all go, Untana Setembisa goes to mid-rent. She starts with a rental year 6,000. And it gets too much. But rental yako ligationing is not 6,000. So you will have your tenants who are more compliant there. So let's look at the things that make us fear. The things that make us fear, we actually put that stumbling block in front of ourselves, or we haven't healed the trauma of when the tenants didn't pay whoever. And we believe those stories, and our brains keep that story and we make it our story. But my mom's story should actually be my story, isn't it? It should start there. It should start there. We have a common friend. Witness has got units in Tembisa. What is that the story? Is it the story? 100% of his
making
tenants.
It work.
No, he makes it work. There are tenants who don't pay, and he's got a plan with that, right? He's got someone who manages the properties. Don't get too familiar with the tenants. He's got his own ways of collecting rental, and he makes sure in December so that he covers the January. So he's got strategies around that. So I'm just saying, there are too many success stories, but we all highlight
the failure
story. And the failure story, there's a way of managing that, but don't let that determine your starting with property investing.
Or with business, actually, because it applies to everything.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Isn't it just? Mautigimi kona manje, I must go and sell this book. But I'm a doctor. How are people going to view me?
Yeah.
So there are these blocks that we have. Sometimes it is, no, I can't be seen selling peanuts. I'm a doctor. Or I can't be seen selling peanuts. You know, my father used to own a shop and own this and own that, or something like that. Those are the things that stop us. And just check it out. What is it that makes you not sell? Yeah? Or you want perfection. No, you need a pop-up store at Mall of Africa.
That has been a handicap for me for a very long
time. I can imagine. Me too. So mine is both societal and both internal, because the property podcast, oh my goodness, Ntando, it had all sorts of things about visibility. Uyangibona sengivela ku-Instagram. But I'm a doctor. What am I doing with podcasts? And what am I going to say in front of people? And half of those people, the 144,000 times that podcast has been downloaded, some people don't know, don't care. Someone in Kenya doesn't know, doesn't care. Someone sitting in Qatar doesn't know, doesn't care about my doctoring. They are looking forward. They were looking for
value.
Financial freedom, property investing advice from other Black people. They downloaded, they listened.
140,000
downloads.
You have moved, sister.
It does. And there are episodes that move it, actually. There are popular episodes. I was going to tell you one of the other lessons that we learned.
Yeah, that was number 3.
That was number 3, ne? Episode 25.
Okay.
Episode 25 has got Majosephine. The
Right.
lesson is property investing is non-discriminatory. It doesn't care who you are. You will make it or you will fail. So episode 25 has got Majosephine. Majosephine is an ex-domestic worker. You and I, Ntando, speak
I was
English.
waiting. I thought this is a celebrity, and I'm still trying to connect who this big celebrity is that you're talking about.
Majosephine. Majosephine is a domestic worker. I did her podcast in December. I remember the year that I can't remember which year it was, maybe 2019 or 2020. I can't remember. Anyway,
Okay.
Majosephine was a domestic worker. She left her job in a half because her then boss did not even pay her a bonus. After picking them up, picking up the family, they are going to Cape Town. She found her envelope, her wages on the table. And when she opened, it was wages for December and there was nothing. She was so heartbroken and she left. And she had a chance meetup and just a chain of events that led her to being literally given a nursing home. There used to be a nursing home on Sontonga Drive in Doornfontein.
Yeah.
And it used to be a step-down care for older people or people who are infirm, who can't take care of themselves. And she has turned that into a student accommodation, and she makes up something like 400,000 per month, underline,
Whoa.
per month.
Whoa.
400,000, and she was even assisted to apply for finance to make those rooms into student accommodation. And she tells the story in the podcast. You will listen to it in episode 25.
400,000 a month.
Yes,
I'm stuck
sir.
there and
Yes,
trying
sir.
to reconcile.
And you and I don't make 400,000.
I balance.
I
That's why I'm
balance.
saying I'm
That's-
trying to reconcile in my mind.
So this student accommodation accommodates some 70 plus students, and from Vets Tech is across the road from her. The Vets Tech in the one in Doornfontein.
Yeah.
And because it's got space as well, she's got some entrepreneurs that have got their minivans that have no safe space to park, but the student accommodation has got. So she's got several people that park there, about 11 cars that park there. In December, when she shuts down, or when the students have gone home, while they are doing maintenance of each room, she also accommodates teachers from other provinces who are coming to the Department of Education to mark another extra income. And then she's got doctoral students who are still writing their theses. They want a quiet space to write, cheap accommodation to stay in. She even organizes the cook to make their meals. They sit in those rooms and she gets income.
I'm very curious to check it out.
Episode 25, Property Magicians Podcast. Find us.
I am going there straight after this.
Multiple ways of having an anchor accommodation that makes multiple sets of income as well.
Flip, but with the background that you say she had, I have two questions. One, what gave her the confidence to start? And two, what gave her the kind of entrepreneurial mindset that she's displaying practically?
Yeah.
Because especially the second bit, that doesn't come easy and naturally to many people. As impressive as the end is, the start, how did she start? And how did she get that confidence to start?
You will listen to the podcast, but basically I think it started with mama bear instinct. She had 4 children. She had to survive. You start there.
That's all.
Oh my goodness. When children have to be fed and their eyes are here, you've got 4 pairs of eyes looking at you, you start. But she was left with a nursing home to take care of the tenants that were there. That's how it started. So she became the operations manager, she became the cook, so she was running the nursing home. And this Jewish gentleman that came to her, he was like, well, I'm going back home. I don't know where he was going, US, Israel, I don't know. I'm going home. I'm leaving you with this thing and whatever. She had lots of trouble before it made it work because some vandals moved into the building as well. She had lots of trouble trying to get them out. This was her building that she was given. And even when she went to TUF is TUHF, it's a financing house that finances inner city projects and inner city buildings. And they got there and she said, and then she got all these vandals out of these people who had occupied the building. And then the security at Vets Tech across the road said there are students who are sleeping on the floor at Vets Tech. And then she gave them accommodation and kept them safe, and she locked the place and whatever. That's how the student accommodation came about. But the funny story that you're going to read there is when you're going to listen to is when she went to TUF and she wanted to now formalize the student accommodation. And she was asked that she needs to fill in this form. Assets and liabilities. She was so confident. She tells me the story. What was nice when I did the podcast was that I was sitting with her, with my laptop. I had to drive to Doornfontein with my laptop, and Bangile was in Chiang Mai in Thailand, and I set it up, and she and I are going to talk into the laptop, and she's like, I get away now, Rutegile Miranda. Press a mo. Hello, Vangi. She's greeting Vangile. And it's funny. And she was so herself. And I'm just like, Josephine, you're going to mix Setswana and whatever. She's like, oh, no. I know how to speak English. But when they came to assets and liabilities, I told the lady at TUF, I was like, you fill it in. Me, I just know that I've got students. I'm getting paid by Vets Technicon. And I have a building. This whole
is your thing
of spreadsheets and blah blah. No. Here's my ID. She had her ID, and she just knew that she had to make it work. So you want to ask me about systems, processes, business plan?
And now this is 400,000 a month later. My goodness.
She is retired, by the way. She says she's retired. She says, I'm the CEO that has retired, Miranda. So her son runs the business now.
Hey, I am looking for this episode. But there's things that she says, things that you're telling me, she says, that resonate when I think about you, actually.
Yeah.
Because there's two mantras that I was thinking about at the start of the year. One was a discussion I was having in a mastermind, and one thing that they kept saying was, just step out and find out. Like, you never know what's coming when you start something. And the second was, always put your best foot forward. When you do start, just try to always approach everything that you do with excellence, the best you can at any point in time. Because again, you never know what's coming. And when I listen to you when we're talking with Witness, and just your story and how you left in medicine and what you've been trying and what you've been learning, I see that in action. You started things, you didn't see this podcast coming, but one thing led to another and one thing led to another.
Indeed.
How has that been like for you? Just starting and accepting that you will evolve.
You know, several things will set you off, and I don't think I knew everything. You don't know anything until you are in it, and then you're like, oh, that's what it is. Oh, that's what it is. That's all I knew, was that I was uncomfortable at the practice. So clinical medicine clearly was not something that I get excited about. You know, I'm very wary to say I don't like it, because I think I'm a good doctor when I'm asked to doctor for that moment, right? But clinical medicine, when it's not your thing, don't do it, right? It's not your thing, because I think it's a disservice. I remember how tired I would be. I remember how irritated I would be by the time I would see patient number 61 and 62 at the Soweto clinic or at Gosbierkes in the evenings. It irritated me more than, and when I looked around at my colleagues would be tired, but not irritated and not resentful, right?
Okay.
And I knew my body would revolt on me. I had headaches of note. I had migraine. I suffered migraine headaches, monthly migraine headaches, because I hated where I was. So listening in to, is it my thing? Is it really my thing? Maybe it's not. But I didn't have role models to model myself against.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it took you long to leave.
It took me very long, but not only that, there were layers of guilt but you study medicine and then you don't want to do clinical medicine. Who is going to treat all these people? Hi, guys.
Oh, that's what you mean by guilt.
Yeah.
But if you leave, who is
Yeah,
going to
who
do it?
is? And this thing of thinking you are Mother Jesus, man. There is someone, that's the reason why someone is a surgeon, or someone is an obs and gynae, someone is an anesthetist, because we've got different interests and we serve differently, right? Have you seen doctors who are pediatricians? I've got doctor friends who are pediatricians. They could never be anything else because they are heart doctors, but this small little patient is their lives. I mean, it brightens. I didn't get brightened up in the wards, honestly, right? And how do you tell your mom and how do you tell society that hospitals don't do that for me, right? The first time I got bright-eyed and excited. I told the story. I told you that I went and did a locum for one doctor who worked at a factory right not far from Rahima Musa Hospital. And it's a packaging company. And the first time I had to wear safety boots and a coverall, and I'm walking around with their process engineer, and he's showing me the process because there were two guys who were having very vicious reaction to the dust of the cardboard box and whatever the plastic that they were using. They were a packaging company. I can't remember what the name of the company was.
Yeah.
And I was taken through the process of how they do this plastic and how they do the boxes. Click.
So
Like immediate
that's
click.
when the spark hit for you.
That's it. Immediate click. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And it's like November 1996. And in January 1997, I was at the university. Oh, and then I asked this doctor when he came back to duty, I asked him what he had done. How do I get to be a doctor in a factory? And he's like, remember when we did fourth year, there was a subject called Com Health and you did something. And it reminded me that actually we were introduced to occupational medicine in medicine, but I didn't see it as a specialty. And he told me where he did his postgrad diploma. I walked into University of Pretoria. I want to show you how life happens. So it was click, I walked that plant.
Yeah.
Click, that doctor had a conversation with me. And then walked into University of Pretoria, January, I'm coming to register for occupational medicine. I get there and they're like, oh no, you're too late for registration. I'm like, all right, I'll just sit here. I'll wait for one of your students who has applied and hasn't turned up.
You did that?
I was determined. That's just how, when you know something is for you, that's what's going to happen. You will see how you do. You guys call it Foster. I say no Foster. It is something in your spirit that says, this thing is my thing and I'm meant to be in this thing. That's how I was reintroduced into occupational medicine. And true to it, there were 2 students who didn't turn up. I paid my registration and that's how I got in.
They allowed you to sit and wait.
Oh, I wasn't
Or
going
you were
anywhere.
not taking no?
I wasn't going anywhere.
So this hustler, this attitude has always been with you. Because I'll tell you, one of the things that is holding entrepreneurs back
Yeah.
is someone says no, someone says they don't like your post, and that takes you out, and you never sell again.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But you,
It's not with
where are you on
everything.
that?
It's not with everything.
Huh?
It is absolutely not with everything. A friend of mine now, on the 5th, we had lunch with a friend, and she posted something on LinkedIn that
Yeah.
had a picture, and someone commented, one person commented and said, "This is not Instagram."
Okay.
Apparently, it set her back like 4 months. She never posted anything, even though she had set up her newsletter to go out weekly for LinkedIn. Like, I'm thinking, what the heck? We post in the corporate where I work. Whenever we have something, they post pictures of us and, oh, Dr. Miranda was doing this and blah, blah, blah. That's what we
One
do,
comment.
Dan. One comment. And already, the comment, you must know, found you already doubting. So it lands exactly at your doubt. So remember that there will be things like that. So that language here in New York Foster, I really like it because it is pushing through the barrier. I'm sure at Mastermind
Yeah.
you come across it. There are these obstacles that stop you. I can tell you about my manuscript. The reason why it wasn't coming out, I started even though I knew I wanted to write something. But we always start with, who am I to be a writer? What's so interesting about me? What will people say? And there are subjects that, of course, are going to be a little controversial for the other reader that reads it because they haven't experienced my life. You need to trust you. You are God, right? You need to trust you. And when you trust you, it doesn't matter what the other person says. It really doesn't matter what you say about church to me, right? I grew up a Catholic girl. I grew up in a Catholic school. I know God, but I don't want to do God the way you tell me or the way the Catholic Church does it or another Catholic in the church does it because I know God. We understand. So trust you as an entrepreneur because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Their experience is not your experience. So
True.
do it your way. Yeah?
True.
Yeah.
I listened to you say, and when someone got easily taken out, it happens a lot.
Yo, it does.
It's shocking me actually when you're saying one comment, 4 months later, nothing had gone out. And for others, they're scared. It's not even a comment that's that harsh.
No. This
For
is
others,
not
it's like,
Instagram.
that wasn't as brutal. Twitter can get proper nasty.
Yeah, it's Sami tweet. I love Twitter, but I'm scared of Twitter. I use it for other things. But yeah. I love it though.
All right. I think to wrap up, because we're coming to an end now, what do you have to say to this statement? Because you got into private practice, you had to close your business at some point and move into something else. You got into things that worked. What do you have to say to this statement? The idea of entrepreneurship is sexy. Starting a business and doing it practically is not.
When I went to practice, do you know that I didn't know that I'm getting into business?
Is it? That sounds obvious for someone with your profile.
It's not. I was going to become a doctor and naturally the money would follow because no one at medical school teaches you business, the business side of offering a service And I can tell you that most of my colleagues don't know that that's a business. You find out along the way.
Along the way.
Oh, okay, I must systematize this. Oh, okay, the accountant is for, oh, okay, and he needs to be on my team the whole time. Oh, the lawyer, okay, he doesn't just negotiate when I am buying the practice. You just find, I just found out, I mustn't say
Along the
everyone
way, yeah.
else. So entrepreneurship is not a natural for a professional. It has to be taught. So if I had to say to someone else, setting up the business is what is most important, is like all the other things, get a mentor. Get a mentor so that the other business part of it can be taken care of. What gave me migraine headaches and what made me resent private practice was, I'm such a good doctor. My practice was full of mothers and children. But I wasn't seeing the money because this money was sitting in the debtor's book. And that's because the system of the business wasn't collecting what I was delivering. I was delivering the service. I was there at the practice on time. I was there sometimes way after my waking hours.
And your debtors were just accruing.
And no one taught me that part of collection of fees is part of business. But that's not what you are taught, right? You are not taught that. And I see young doctors now, very excited about them. I love them. There are several that I follow on Twitter and on Instagram.
Not Matthew.
Yeah, no, they're there's Dr. T, for instance, Dr. T, and may her soul rest in peace. Dr. Cindy was my favorite. She used to do Twitterthons on HIV and HIV management, right? And I really liked her. So they knew something that I didn't know, but they came 20 years after I had qualified, and they ran businesses. They ran businesses, and they ran their Twitter business in a particular way. She would only focus on HIV and teach about HIV. And that's how she got her patients. And I think her practice ran successfully because of that. So no one teaches you that at medical school. So don't assume. Don't assume because you are such a good doctor, you're going to be a good business person. So sorry, Dad. You're speechless.
You got me in 20 questions in my mind. You have to come back. I am so lucky that I managed to catch you at the start of the year before you got pretty hectic.
It gets hectic.
But we'll talk when the book comes out. This has been very good, as well as I thought. And I think it's a great start to the year for me. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. And you're going to have to wait for another free time like this. I'm still on holiday right now.
It's coming. It's coming. The book is coming out soon.
The book is going to have to come because the birth of the book is important. It's important for those that follow after me. It's important for my daughter. And it's important for the world, for us. When I was looking for the me now, I couldn't find. So it's important that I write.
It's the book you should have read, or you wish you would have read. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with us to this time. If you're enjoying this content, hit the subscribe, like, and follow button.
Sure.
We want to grow with you. Enjoy.